Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Decades with Joe E. Kramer. Too true to believe, too true to be true. You be the judge.
You turn the time circuits on. Say, kids, what time is it?
It's 7 o'clock at WWRR Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Are you telling me you built a time machine?
This is the sound of the 80s generation. Decades with Joe E. Kramer starts now. On 105 The River.
All right, another Saturday night, another edition of Decades is on the air everywhere. No politics, no controversy, just great music. We have a Decades Artist Spotlight. I will talk about that coming up in just a few minutes. Leading it off, the King of Pop on Decades.
Girl, close your eyes, let that rhythm get into you. Don't try to fight it, there ain't nothing that you can do. Relax your mind, lay back and groove with mine. You gotta feel that heat, and we can ride the boogie, share that beat of love. I wanna rock with you all night, dance you into the sunlight. I wanna rock with you all night, gonna rock the night away. Out on the floor, there ain't nobody there but us. Girl, when you dance, there's a magic that must be love. Just take it slow, 'cause we got so far to go. When you feel that heat, and we gonna ride the boogie, share that beat of love. I wanna rock with you all night, dance you into the sunlight. I wanna rock with you all night, we gonna rock the night away. And when the groove is dead and gone, yeah, you know that love survives, so we can rock forever. I wanna rock with you, I wanna groove with you all night, girl. Sunlight, rock with you all night, dance the night away. I wanna rock with you, yeah, all night, rock you into the sunlight. Rock with you all night, rock the night away. Feel that heat, feel the need all night, rock you into daylight.
On air, online, and on your mobile device. Decades is everywhere. 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 Everywhere.
Immaculate dream, made red and skin. I've been waiting for your sign with a home tattoo. Happy birthday to you, was created for you. It'll take a little time, might take a little
Radio. This is Decades. Their comeback in 1993, Duran Duran. Come Undone on Decades.
This is Retro Radio.
Retro Radio.
Decades on 105, The River.
As we roll 5 full hours of Retro Radio, it is Joe E. Kramer. Tonight, Decades Artist Spotlight is back. Ivan Doroshuk. Okay, say, who's Ivan Doroshuk? He's the lead singer of Men Without Hats. And they're still out there on tour, and we'll talk to Ivan after 9, right here on Decades.
Welcome to the big time. You're bound to be a star. Even if you don't go all the way, I know that you'll go far. This race is for rats who can turn you upside down. No one you can count on in this sleazy little town. No, lots of promises in the dark. Don't you open your heart, 'cause it don't mean nothing, the words that they say. No, it don't mean nothing, these games that people play. No, it don't mean nothing, no victim, no crime. No, it don't mean nothing till you sign it on the dotted line. The director smiles as you walk in the door. Says, I love your work, babe, but you're just not what we're looking for. It's never what, but who it is you know. So easy to get stuck in all that California snow. Take a good look around and you'll find people trying to mess with your mind. But it don't mean nothing, the words that they say. No, it don't mean nothing, these games that people play. No, it don't mean nothing, no victim, no crime. No, it don't mean nothing till you sign it on the dotted line. Hollywood can be so lonely, make you the winner of a losing fight. Party is never over. Stars are always shining, doesn't matter if it's day or night. The producer says let me change your line or two, and a little bit of something can look awfully good to you. And you wanna scream, but you gotta keep it all inside. When you're trying to make a living, there ain't no such thing as pride. Oh no, lots of promises in the dark. Don't you open your heart, 'cause it don't mean nothing, the words that they say. No, it don't mean nothing, these games that people play. No, it don't mean nothing, no victim, no crime. No, it don't mean nothing till you sign it on the dotted line. Don't mean nothing. Don't mean nothing. Don't mean nothing. Oh, no, it don't mean nothing. Mean nothing. Oh, no, it don't mean nothing. Mean
Decades with Joe E. Kramer. And another lost track from the 80s.
Janaba, a dubba, the gobo. Waka puna huda, wanaka, han solo. You abale lu, eat chaka gobi. To a packaway, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Koja's basti, kuchin me a doba. Keep a haba wedge, yes, keep a haba yoda. Love double mulaki, waki, lock Zeta. Kimaki, laki, neat, double, Darth Vader. A bisu lugu mu. Yaki, laki, waka, to glow a masa look. Raz na nyamika ya kobo munaka. Lindo maki wizard na Chewbacca. Kobo chaka Louis, naki mani wea. Boto waka nick, Rizana Princess Leia. Nuki waka chubby, funa hunda waka zoo. Lichi ki waki, R2D2.
Love the yub yub. It's actually nub yub. Nub yub. Mako, or Meko, however you want to pronounce it, who, although Shadow thinks that it's Shadow Steel thinks he's dead, he is actually still alive. The Ewok Celebration, that was 1983, and his last chart single, right here on Decades. Love that. He did the Star Wars and the Galactic Funk. If you're a big Star Wars fan and you're looking for some really, really great music, you can even look in. You can hear some of it on YouTube. Star Wars and Star Wars Galactic Funk. Really good stuff. It really is. You'll really enjoy it. Star Wars and other Galactic Funk. I'm sorry. And then he has encounters of every kind. Mako plays the Wizard of Oz, Superman, and other galactic heroes. And it all has that disco theme to it from the late 70s and early 80s. All right, tonight we have our Decades Artist Spotlight. We welcome back to the show Mr. Ivan Doroshuk. He is the lead singer for the past, 40 years. For Men Without Hats, Safety Dance, Pop Goes the World. He's on the Retro Futura tour, along with Paul Young, Howard Jones, Katrina and the Waves, The English Beat, and more. So we will talk to Ivan coming up right after 9 o'clock. Do not miss it. We got more Decades coming up, including the 8-track classic Flashback. He just passed away this week. Great guy, one of the best country artists of all time. I'm sure you know who it is. He's a cowboy, no doubt about it. We'll play that song and more. This is Decades on Total Reach Radio, 105 The River, right here and around the world at 105theriver.net. Decades with JoeEKramer.com. Hang on.
You can start up the generator now. Prepare for launching.
Enough said.
Feel the vibration.
Now, back to Decades with Joe E. Kramer on 105 The River.
Something in the way you love me won't let me
song on the chart, Borderline. Her and Shannon were both duking it out, let the music play, and I can remember everybody was saying Shannon had more talent, she was going to be the bigger star, and things certainly didn't plan out that way. Anyway, this guy, 40 years and counting, and this was one of his greatest albums, Tao. And then he had this album, Living in Oz. Tao and Living in Oz. I'm a little confused, you get it. The title track, Living in Oz.
It's Joe E. Kramer with Decades.
Northeast PA's 105 The River.
I love the colorful clothes she wears and the way the sunlight plays upon her hair. I hear the sound of a gentle wind on the wind that lifts her perfume through the air. I'm picking up good vibrations, my mind excited. Good vibrations, my mind excited. Good vibrations.
get around. Yeah, get around, round, round, I get around. It happened on the strip where the road is wide. Two cool shorts standing side by side. Yeah, my fuel-injected Stingray and a 413 are revving up their engines and it sounds real mean. Tack it up, buddy, gonna shut you down. Come on, baby, wait and see. Yes, I'm gonna take you surfing with me. All along, some baby, wait and see. Yeah, I'm gonna take you surfing with me. Let's go surfing now. Everybody's learning how. Come on a safari with me. Ba 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 ran. Ba 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 ran. You got me rocking and a rolling, rocking and a reeling, Barbara and ba 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 ba. If everybody had an ocean across the USA, then everybody'd be surfing like California. You'd see them wearing their baggies, Warachi sandals too, a bushy, bushy blonde hairdo, surfing USA. Well, she got her daddy's car and she cruised through the hamburger stand now. See, she forgot all about the library like she told her old man now. And with the radio blasting goes cruising just as fast as she can now. And she'll have fun, fun, fun till her daddy took the T-bird away. Fun, 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 now the daddy took the T-bird away. Fun, fun, now the daddy took the T-bird away. Fun, fun, now the daddy took the T-bird away. Fun, fun, now the daddy took the T-bird away. Fun, fun, now the daddy took the T-bird away. Fun, fun, now the daddy took the T-bird away. Fun, fun, now the daddy.
Decades with Joe E. Kramer. Turn it up.
Your name Michael Diamond?
No, mine's Clarence.
From downtown
Manhattan,
some village, my style's wild, and you know that it's still it.
Disco bass up and then you're doing the ball.
Shake your robot.
something you never heard before. I mean, you had Run DMC and all those bands, but these were three dorky guys that looked like they were very unpopular in high school, and they were making this kind of rap music that I don't think anybody ever experienced before. And even if you didn't like rap, you became a fan of the Beastie Boys because everything was so catchy. All right, we got the 8-track classic flashback coming up. First, Cher, just like Jesse James.
Strutting into town like you're slinging a gun. Just a small town dude with a big city attitude. Honey, are you looking for some trouble tonight? Well, alright. You think you're so bad, drop the women for a while. You shoot them all down with the flash on your pearly smile. Honey, but you're mad tonight. Well, that's right. You think you'll knock me on my feet till I'm flat on the floor, till my heart is crying in and then I'm begging for more. So come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby, show me what that loaded gun is for. If you can give it, I can take it. 'Cause if this heart is gonna break, it's gonna take a lot to break it. 'Cause I know tonight somebody's gonna win the fight. So if you're so tough, come on and prove it. Your heart is down for the count and you know you're gonna lose it. Tonight you're gonna go down in flames, just like Jesse James. You're an outlaw lover and I'm after your hide. Well, you ain't so strong, won't be long till your hands are tied. Tonight I'm gonna take you in, dead or alive. That's right. Break the laws of love in the name of desire. Make 10 steps back, 'cause I'm ready, baby, aim and fire. Baby, there's nowhere you're gonna run tonight. Ooh, that's right. Well, you had your way with love, but it's the end of the day. Now a team of wild horses couldn't break your heart away. So come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby, you know there ain't nothing left to say. If you can give it, I can take it. 'Cause if this heart is gonna break, it's gonna take a lot to break it. I know tonight somebody's gonna win the fight. So if you're so tough, come on and prove it. Your heart is down on the count and you know you're gonna lose it. Tonight you're gonna go down in flames, just like Jesse James. Think you knock me off my feet till I'm flat on the floor, till my heart is crying in and then I'm begging for more. So come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby, come on. If you can give it, I can take it. 'Cause if this heart is gonna break, it's gonna take a lot to break it. I know tonight somebody's gonna win the fight. So if you're so tough, come on and prove it. Your heart is down for the count and you know you're gonna lose it. Tonight you're gonna go down in flames, just like Jesse James. Tonight you're gonna go down in flames, just like Jesse James. Tonight you're gonna go down in flames, just like Jesse James. I'm gonna shoot you down, Jesse James.
Decades with Joe E. Kramer gives you this week's 8-track classic flashback on 105 The River.
I've been walking these streets so long, singing the same old song. I know every crack in these dirty sidewalks of Broadway, where hustle's the name of the game, and nice guys get washed away like the snow and the rain. There's been a load of compromising on the I really don't mind the rain, and a smile can hide all the pain. But you're down when you're riding the train that's taking the long way. And I dream of the things I'll do with a Subway token and $1 tucked inside my shoe. There'll be a load of compromising on the road to my horizon, but I'm gonna be where the lights are shining on me, like a rhinestone cowboy, riding out on a horse in a star-spangled rodeo. Rhinestone cowboy, getting cards and letters from people I don't even know, and offers coming over the phone. Like a rhinestone cowboy, riding out on a horse in a star-spangled rodeo. Like a rhinestone cowboy.
Total Reach Radio, this is Decades. The great, legendary Glenn Campbell, who passed away just this week. He was suffering end-stages Alzheimer's disease, and he did his farewell tour a couple of years back. The Rhinestone Cowboy, #1 song from 1975, written by Larry Weiss. This is a guy who, over 50 years, released more than 70 albums, sold 45 million records, 12 gold, 4 platinum, a double platinum, 80 different songs on either the Billboard Country Chart, the Billboard Hot 100, or the Adult Contemporary. 29 made the top 10, and 9 reached #1 on at least one of those charts. So, truly amazing career. Everybody knows him as the Rhinestone Cowboy, a song that he said he identified with. And at one point his career didn't like playing, but then came around. That's usually what happens. So, all right. We've got more decades coming up. Of course, speaking of legendary, the one and only Hairspray at 8 is coming up in just a few minutes. 1 full hour, all that hair metal you love from the 80s and early 90s. We're going to do that. A lot of cool stuff. Motley Crue, of course, The Cold, Shotgun Messiah, Every Mother's Nightmare, Christine in there. So a lot of cool music coming up in the next hour. 9 o'clock, we then have our Decades Artist Spotlight. Ivan Doroshik. He is from Men Without Hats, the guy who did the safety dance that we all know and love, and Pop Goes the World, plus a whole bunch more. He's from Canada, and he will be with us at 9 o'clock, so don't go anywhere. This is Decades on Total Reach Radio, 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM, if you like a lot of static, and of course, around the world at 105theriver.net and Decades with JoeyKramer.com. We will be right back with Hairspray at 8. Hang on.
It's 8 o'clock at WWRR Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Hey, man, this is JJ French from Twisted Sister.
Hey, it's Klaus Eichstätt from Other Get Joe.
And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. Little boy blue and the man on the moon.
Hi, this is Steven Piercy. You're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer. You're listening to Joey Kramer on Decades.
You're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer. I wanna rock!
This is Hairspray at 8 on Decades.
All right, that time of the night. We wait for it every single Saturday. 1 full hour of all the hair metal from the 80s and 90s. This, my friends, is Hairspray at 8. 1 full hour, great music on the way. We've got, of course, Wasp in there. We're going to do some Shotgun Messiah. Also, Christine. So don't go anywhere. Motley Crue gets it going. This is Hairspray at 8.
You say our love is like dynamite. Open your eyes, it's like butter and ice. Well, you're killing me, your love's a guillotine. Why don't you just set me free? Too young, oh, I'm too young. Oh, I'm too young to fall in love.
How high was your hair? This is Hairspray at 8. Decades on 105 The River.
here on Decades. Joe E. Kramer from their 1989 album, The Headless Children. Forever Free, that's Blackie Lawless and Wasp. They were like the prime target in the 1980s of the PMRC. Do you remember the PMRC? The PMRC was the Parents Music Resource Center, headed by Tipper Gore, who went and said, you know, these albums have to be pulled off the shelf or have a sticker on them because they're going to make our youth do crazy things. And, of course, Dee Snider took her on, Blackie Lawless took her on, and that's why we have the parental advisory stickers on our albums to this very day. There you go. One of my favorite bands never got enough credit, The Cult. She Sells Sanctuary.
Because you can never use enough hairspray. Hairspray at 8. Decades with Joe E. Kramer on 105 The River.
I walk the streets alone at night, a shadow in the city light. I didn't know that love could hurt, how little broken hearts are worth. Oh, swore that we would never lie, but love just slipped away somehow. Baby, it's all over now. All that we had, gone forever. Things that we said, it will never be. Living without you, don't bother me. If there's a tear in my eye, it's not for you. Don't fight it yourself. If there's a tear in my eye, it's not for you. You seem so innocent, you had me blinded. What good is all your beauty? There's nothing behind it. If there's a tear in my eye, it's not for you. Don't fight it yourself. If there's a tear in my eye, it's not for you. Lock the door and cut the lights. I won't be coming home tonight.
Total Reach Radio. This is Hairspray and 8. Shotgun Messiah. Living Without You on Decades. Joey Kramer. Now, I was looking for some news this week. Not a lot going on. Now, we're going to play some Kiss coming up. So, Gene Simmons, he seems to always be the one out there. But he has, even with the tour schedule that Kiss has been doing, which, let's face it, for 60-some-year-old men, it's relentless. But somehow he managed to write a book. And a new book on Power, which will be his first since 2014. And he also says he's working on new music with Kiss. Now, the new book is basically about how everybody can make more money and actually become relatively rich, says Gene Simmons. And it's going to be released on November 14th through Day Street Books. And HarperCollins 128-page book can be pre-ordered at the HarperCollins website. Now, he also spoke about new music. And previously, Paul Stanley wanted to make some new stuff. Gene Simmons said no. Gene Simmons was quoted as saying, "There's some writing going on. Not too long ago, I wrote a song called Your Wish Is My Command. It sounds like an anthem, like something that might have come off of Love Gun Baby." So, who knows? Somehow Gene thinks everything he writes is going to be the next anthem. But hey, I mean, there you go. So we're probably going to see something new from Kiss eventually. We got some Kiss coming up. We're also going to do Christine, Faster Pussycat, and we're going to do Autograph, who released the song 2 years ago. Now they're on an EP. Now they're going to be releasing a full-length album in the next couple of months. So that and more. Hairspray at 8 continues next right here. Total Reach Radio. This is Decades on 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM. Around the world at 105theriver.net. Decades with JoeyKramer.com and a Radio Bold app.
Hairspray and lots of it. This is Hairspray at 8 on Decades.
I've got a man-sized predicament, and it's a big one. Goes like this, yeah. My. clouds are mirrored. Love that I confess. Got my hesitations, 'cause she kisses like the kiss of death. Love's not so morning, knocks against the wall. Calls me sugar daddy, she knows she's a got me by the ball. They're gonna down me low. So fine. Got a reputation, haven't got a hold. It's a sticky situation if she ain't old enough to vote. Loves to play with fire, loves to hurt so good, loves to keep me burning, 'cause she's a bad habit, bad habit, bad habit, that's good, good, good. They call it domino, a domino, a domino. Do it, do it. Every damn time I walk through that door, it's the same damn thing. That bitch bends over, and I forget my name. Ow. Love's not so morning, backs against the wall. Calls me sugar daddy, she knows she's a got me by the balls. Loves to play with fire, love that I confess. Got no hesitation, 'cause she's a bad habit, yeah, bad habit. She's a bad habit.
Remember when music was this good? This is Hairspray at 8 on Decades.
Hey, Mark Gus Scott from Trickster. When I'm in town, guess what I'm listening to? My man, Joey Kramer with Decades, baby. Come on and turn it up.
Sometimes you say
This is Decades Hairspray and 8. And my buddy Marcus Scott and Trickster, they are working on more music. Marcus Scott working on a sequel to the Monkey King, which is a blockbuster worldwide. So we're going to get Mark back on the show. He is such a great guy to have on the show. He is one of my favorite guys to talk to. What a great guy. Speaking of great guys, Matt Porter, I know you're listening, the host of the Kiss Room. He got me hooked on Christine, so here you go. Way back home. Hairspray at 8. Woo!
The generation that put a hole in the ozone. Hairspray at 8 on Decades.
Lips, I got a
key to heaven's gate. Wait for the movie, cause I've been there before. I know that life is a battle, love is war. She got the big gun, playing in my heart. Bang, bang, shooting like a firing squad. Big gun, but took me by surprise. She got my love and reaching for the sky. She got the big guns, pointing in my heart. Bang, bang, shooting like a firing squad. Big guns, she blew me away. I went down in Now to a town, there's a backseat of Romeo. Beside a tail with my hands in the air. Another night and no bullets to She got the big guns, pointing in my heart. Bang, bang, shooting like a firing squad. Big guns, she blew me away. And I went down, down, down in flames. Big guns, big guns. Look at them, big guns. Big guns, yeah, big guns. Big guns. She made me really have a big guns. She shot me and I'm down in
Auto Reach Radio, this is Hairspray at 8. Sebastian must have had a epiphany because they've been showing some of his concerts online and he's actually very calm and he's hitting all the notes, so who knows, maybe a change. This is Hairspray at 8, and every mother's nightmare who you thought was gone forever, signed with High Vol Music, October 6th, full-length release of Grind. Every mother's nightmare, love can make you blind on Hairspray at 8.
left me crying, and I didn't know what I should do. Love can make you blind. Well, I can't see that. Love can make you blind. Well, oh yeah. Well, I can't see that. Love can make you blind. Well, oh yeah. Love can make you blind.
How much hairspray do you use? This is Hairspray at 8 on Decades.
She had sun-dyed in her eyes, full of mystery. Girl, every
Who's watching you? They're at M3 Festival this year. The M3 Festival 2018 will be the 10-year anniversary. It is supposed to be bigger than ever. They're even thinking of going 3 days to celebrate the 10th anniversary. And of course, this band was the big headliner this weekend. They rocked, no doubt. Rap, You're in Love, Hairspray at 8.
You take the midnight subway train. You call another shots. You strip for lightning. You're in love. You take the evening one-on-one. You're only living to have fun. You want to usually take me home tonight. I'll make you wish that you were mine. You strip for lightning. You're in love. It's not worth fighting. We'll turn around. Remember me. I'm the one who's out and aimed to play. You're in love. You make a living, loving hot. You spin me like a top. You take the evening one-on-one. You're only living to have fun. You strip by lightning. You're in love. It's not worth fighting. We'll turn around. Remember me. I'm the one who's out and aimed to please. You're in love.
This is Hairspray at 8.
The biggest hits, 105 The River.
Who is the man in the white vest? I'm getting nervous, becoming a mess. Is he the doctor's man to take me away? All the same damn demon from yesterday. Waking up is bad to the impossible. Something in the story won't let me go. You know I'm shaking and I'm feeling sick. I guess I'm gonna need a vodka quick. Mama says that whiskey on
keeping it stiff. This is Hairspray at 8 with Joe E. Kramer.
I never seen you look so good. You never act the way you should. But I like it, and I know you like it too. The way that I want you, I gotta have you. Oh yes I do. I never ever stay out late. You know that I can hardly wait just to see you, and I know you cannot wait. I wait to see me too. I gotta touch you, 'cause baby we'll be at the drive-in in the old man's Ford, behind the bushes, until I'm screaming for more. Down the basement, lock the cellar door, and baby, talk dirty to me. You know I call you on the telephone. I'm only hoping that you're home, so I can hear you when you say those words to me, and whisper so softly. I gotta hear you, 'cause baby we'll be at the drive-in in the old man's Ford, behind the bushes, till I'm screaming for more. Down the basement, lock the cellar door, and baby, talk dirty to me. CC, pick up that guitar and I'm talk to me.
To me, I can't resist, man. Bret Michaels and Poison, that's what they're known as now, I guess. And there has been a rumor. Now, it's not confirmed by any means. Two rumors, actually. For the M3 Fest next year. Number one, Night Ranger is supposed to be there. Now, that's not confirmed, but I talked to Kelly Kagi. He said it's a definite possibility. The other rumor is that possibly Bret Michaels will be there, or Poison. So they're going to make it a big thing next year for 10 years, so it's going to be like, I guess, no filler bands. Not that there were many this year, but the second stage, you know what I'm saying. Maybe Dawkins will make it to the main stage this year. Who knows? All right. That's going to do it. Hairspray at 8 for another week. Hope you liked it. And if you missed it, you can get it online this week. I'd say Tuesday, but sometimes it's, Wednesday, Thursday. You go over to decadeswithjoeykramer.com. It'll link right from there. Also on Facebook, Decades with Joey Kramer. Anyway, without further ado, we got a Decades Artist Spotlight tonight, which is very cool. It is Ivan Dorocek. Now, he is the lead singer of Men Without Hats, Safety Dance, all that cool stuff. So we're going to talk to Ivan next. Don't go anywhere. Great guy. You'll love it right here. The Decades Artist Spotlight is next. It is Decades on Total Reach Radio, 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM around the world at 105theriver.net. decadeswithjoeykramer.com, and the Radio Bold app. Hang on for Ivan Doroshik of Men Without Hats next.
It's 9 o'clock at WWRR Scranton Wilkes-Barre. This is a Decades Artist Spotlight.
Hi, it's Rick Richards from the Georgia Satellites.
My honey, my baby, don't put my love up on no shelf. She said, don't hand me no lines and keep your hands to yourself.
Hey, everybody, this is Gary Graham from Honeymoon Suite.
Hi, this is Neil Dowdy of REO Speedwagon.
This is Decades, Joey Kramer.
And you're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
And you're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
This is the Decades Artist Spotlight. Now, here's Joe E. Kramer with this week's artist.
We are on a Decades Artist Spotlight this week, and we got to welcome back to the show the frontman, the lead singer, the founder of a little group called Men Without Hats. We all know them in the 1980s for their Gigundo hits, The Safety Dance, but they were a whole lot more. They're back out there on tour in a Retro Futura tour, and we're going to have Ivan Doroshik with us tonight, the lead singer, back to the show. So sit back and enjoy. The Decades Artist Spotlight is next, but first, of course, it is The Safety Dance.
Safety Dance.
We can dance if we want to. We can leave your friends behind. Cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine. I say, we can go where we want to, a place where they will never find. And we can act like we come from out of this world, leave the real one far behind. And we can dance. We can dance if we want to. We can leave your friends behind. Cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine. Say, we can go where we want to, place where they will never find. And we can act like we come from out of this world, leave the real one far behind. We can dance. We can go when we want to. Night is young and so am I. And we can dress real neat from our hearts to our feet and surprise them with a victory cry. Say, we can act if we want to. If we don't, nobody will. And you can act real rude and totally removed, and I can act like an imbecile. And say, we can dance, everything's out of control. We can dance, they're doing it from pole to pole. We can dance, everybody look at your hands. We can dance, everybody's taking the chance. Safe to dance, oh, it's safe to dance. Yes, it's safe to dance. Never gonna lose it, everything will work out right. I say, we can dance if we want to. We can leave your friends behind. 'cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine. I say, we can dance, everything's out of control. We can dance, we're doing it from pole to pole. We can dance, everybody look at your hands. We can dance, everybody's making a chance. Well, it's safe to dance, yes, it's safe to dance. Well, it's safe to dance, well, it's safe to dance. Yes, it's safe to dance, it's safe to dance, yeah. Well, it's safe to dance, it's safe to dance. Oh, it's safe to dance, oh, it's safe to dance, oh, it's safe to dance, oh, it's safe to dance.
This is the Decades Artist Spotlight with Joe E. Kramer. This week's artist.
It is another Decades Artist Spotlight, and tonight we welcome back to the show singer, songwriter, lead vocalist, and of course founder of the Canadian rock band Men Without Hats, rock synth band, I should say, Ivan Doroschuk. Did I get that name right again?
Yeah, right on.
So 35 years. I mean, last time we talked, it was 2012, and you just had your first album come out in, quite a while. And Love in the Age of War, but now it's like the 35th anniversary of Rhythm of Youth and, of course, the Safety Dance.
Yep. And we're celebrating it by going out on tour with Howard Jones this summer and the Retro Futura tour and playing a lot of those songs, playing a lot of the songs off the album.
And does it feel like 35 years? I mean, God, who would have thought 35 years later you'd still be out there, doing the Safety Dance?
Hey, I'm blessed. I mean, I'm so fortunate that people are still listening to it and still dancing to it and giving me the opportunity to go out and play it for them.
And I'm a big guy on. I love acoustic versions. I love stuff that's stripped down. And I saw on YouTube you did an acoustic version of it. I think about 2 years ago. The clip that was on there was from Boston. Did you ever think of actually recording an acoustic version of Safety Dance, or is there one out there?
Yeah, we were thinking of recording it. We might be going into studio pretty soon to do just that. So that's one of our future projects.
And an acoustic version of Pop Goes the World, of course.
Yeah. B-side.
Another great song, obviously. All right, before we get into the heart of the interview here, I mean, a little brief history. Men Without Hats has had a lot of members over the years, but going back to the beginning, just give a brief history, not only of yourself, well, what led to the forming of Men Without Hats?
Well, I grew up in the 70s. I was, a child of the heavy metal generation, kind of. And,
right.
But for me, I think new wave happened. It was a combination of disco and progressive rock. I think that led me to the 80s. That brought me to the 80s and made me ready to be in a new wave band. Because that's what it kind of was for me. It was a combination of synthesizers and dance music, which was happening at the end of the 70s, coupled with the fact that I grew up taking piano lessons all my life. My mother was a music teacher at McGill University in Montreal. And so I was surrounded by music, and that was it. I was front and center on the disco scene in the late '70s, and Montreal was a big prog rock city for the prog rock scene. It was big on Genesis and Pink Floyd and King Crimson and Yes and all those bands. So it was a blend of that, a blend of the French culture that happened in Montreal, and all of that came to a head in the 80s, and I was studying communications at McGill University, and it's where I met a bunch of musicians, and we decided to form a punk band, form a rock band, just like everybody else was doing. And it was a new explosion of everything. Video was new, music was new, clothes were new, hairstyles were new. Everything was a fresh start. So it was a lot of fun.
And it's weird because I remember in the early 80s, we went from, turning the radio on, hearing Kenny Rogers and Barbra Streisand. Not that there's anything wrong with Kenny Rogers or Barbra Streisand, but it was like the flip of a switch. From that, you were hearing stuff like, Devo and Men Without Hats and A Flock of Seagulls. And the music just flipped.
Well, that was it. It was, that's exactly, that's basically where the idea for the song Safety Dance came from, because we were still going to discotheques, and it was the dying days of disco at the end of the 70s, and the DJs were starting to mix in the odd new wave song,
right.
So they, now and then you'd hear Blondie, Heart of Glass, you'd hear Rock Lobster by the B-52s, you know, and we'd get up on we'd get up on the dance floor and start pogoing, jumping up and down and doing the sort of the precursor to the mosh pit, you know. The bouncers and the club owners never seen anything like it. They didn't know what it was, and they'd toss us out. You know, and so that's basically where the idea for Safety Dance, that we could dance if we wanted to, and this is the new music was ours, and it was coming in, and there was no stopping it.
And it's funny because when I read all about pogoing, whenever you look up Men Without Hats, and if you look up the actual meaning of it, it's hysterical because it says keeping their torsos rigid or thrashing them about, holding their arms stiffly at their sides or flaying them, and keeping their legs together or kicking about while jumping in any direction.
Yeah. And so for the people who are still like trying to do the disco two-step to Barry White, this was pretty confusing. They thought they were we were out to hurt them basically. And so
And how was the support from your family? Like you said, your mother was into the business. Now your brothers were in the band originally. Did you get a lot of support when you decided, hey, we're going to do this band, we're going to go for it?
Oh, yeah. I remember our first show in Montreal when we were still, this was, because before we were a synth band, we were a guitar punk band. We were doing Cramps covers and Contortions covers and all kinds of stuff, and Chris Spedding songs. And we played in a punk club down in Old Montreal, and I told my parents wanted to come. My mom's, my dad was a musician too. And they wanted to come, and I said, no, I don't want you to come here because it's a punk rock thing, and there's going to be a lot of violence, and there's going to be a lot of punk rockers, and it's going to be like, I just don't want you to come. It's going to be too dangerous. And so I was up on stage doing our set and everything like that, and the crowd was getting into it and everything like that. And I looked to the back of the room, and I noticed at the back door, I could see my parents' heads poking in the back door. They had come anyway, and they were there watching they saw our first ever show. Professional show,
That's great because a lot of artists I talked to didn't have that support.
No, we had it all the time. I mean, if I'm still doing it, it's largely due to my parents, and no, it was great. We grew up, like I say, I grew up in a musical household that we were surrounded by instruments. My dad was an amateur musician as well, and he played he and his dad played in a sort of a country western band, a dance band. They'd play the Saturday night dances at the barn dances, but he backed up musicians who would come through town, and he and his dad would be the backing band, and he got to back up guys like Hank Williams and Hank Snow and a lot of famous people that went through a little town of nowhere, Manitoba. So it was a good. Like I say, once again, I was surrounded by music and had a lot of support.
Talk a little bit about you were in Montreal. The Montreal music scene was a little different because if you went to Toronto, it was a very corporate type of area, but Montreal was very different.
Yeah, Montreal was really different because it was a real sort of French-English thing, and one of the main things, the difference between Montreal and Toronto, was that all the record labels were in Toronto. And there was absolutely no record industry happening in Montreal, which made the scene a lot more experimental because people who were making music in Montreal didn't have that pressure that the Toronto bands had, where everybody was trying to sound like the latest band that had just been signed, and everybody was kind of chasing that corporate carrot. Montreal didn't have that. Montreal knew that when they were doing the sign, there was no fat cat in the crowd with a cigar and a wad full of cash ready to sign you. So we could do whatever we wanted. We could really we really pushed the envelope in Montreal. So Montreal's scene was a lot like more experimental, a lot more daring. It was a lot wilder than what was happening in the rest of the country, which is why Montreal became kind of like New York in the States, where New York is kind of like the place where everybody heads to New York to kind of make it. Montreal was kind of a place where musicians had to kind of spend some time in Montreal as part of their CV to make them kind of legit. It had a really sort of burgeoning. A lot of bands came from here. Arcade Fire, like Celine Dion is the biggest star in the world still.
Right.
There was like all the way back to Gino Vanelli, Corey Hart. Montreal has had a lot of big acts. It's a cool place to come from.
And of course, the story of a lot of bands, you were rejected by like almost every label before you actually got signed.
Exactly. No. Our first record, Rhythm of Youth, was put out in Canada as an import. It was first released in Canada as an import, and then we were signed. It was distributed by a Canadian company that had rejected us. They ended up having to distribute us anyway because they were distributing the British label that we had signed to. And we were. I mean, Safety Dance. When we first released Safety Dance, it never even went top 10 in Canada.
Yeah, I remember it wasn't a big hit anywhere, and I remember you telling the story, and you could elaborate on this, that you were actually ready to make a second album when the Safety Dance, it kicked in, and you had to get back and go on tour.
Well, that's it. One of the last things we did for that record was make a 12-inch. They told us you got to go make a 12-inch of Safety Dance, and we sort of knew what it was to make a 12-inch. The other people were doing it, so we kind of did our research and did our homework and came up with this 12-inch. And then we went back in the studio to do the second record. We were pleased with what had happened with the first one. We'd gotten a deal, which is like, wow, and when they put us in the studio, made a record, we actually made a record, and our record was playing on the radio. Like, we didn't care what the number chart, we didn't care how many we'd sold. We were just so stoked that we actually were making records and being in studios and getting to do shows and that was our dream come true. And so we just headed into studio, happy to be making our second record. And then that 12-inch that we had kind of made and forgotten about hit number 1 on the Billboard dance charts, and we had to go out there and start all over again and start promoting the record, and that's when the real work started. So it was a weird story. And then then trying to finish that record a year and a half later, coming back to those tracks that you had left, and being told by the record company, just go back there and finish it. And we were different people. We were different. Like, everything had changed in our world. And so that record got finished in a funny kind of way too. So it's all rock and roll though, and it's all good.
Somebody told me to live is a lie. Well, I know better. Got a woman inside, tells me things that I should understand. 'Cause I know better, even though I'm a man. So many things go in so many ways. Every single moment like a judgment day. Thank goodness things are getting better for sure. I got the message. Love is the cure. Message is you. Somebody told me that we live in a dream. Sounds like something that you hear on TV. Got everything, even though I'm a guy. Feels so good, I got a woman inside. Ooh, yeah. I said, amen. But quit pushing your women round. I said, amen. got more rock and roll than we ever deserved. Some of us were fishes, some of us were worms. We got more rock and roll than we ever deserved. Some of us were fishes, some of us were worms. Take it away, Ermways.
This week's Decades Artist Spotlight continues. Now, here's Joe E. Kramer with this week's artist.
We are on a Decades Artist Spotlight. Ivan Doroschuk. I always pronounce it different all the time. It's hard. It's a hard name. He's from Canada. Of course, the band is Men Without Hats. That song right there is Hey Men. The Adventures of Women and Men Without Hate in the 21st Century was the album song that went to number 8 in Canada. And just like a lot of these artists, and I always hate when people say, for instance. One hit and never heard from them again. Aha was a band that sold 100 million albums worldwide. So was like Falco, who did Rock Me Amadeus, 75 million albums worldwide. OMD, which we're going to have Andy McCluskey on the show, sold 75 million albums worldwide. And, of course, Men Without Hats, who sold 15 million albums worldwide. Even though they only had 2 hits here in the States, they were huge in Canada. And they were also very popular in Austria, New Zealand, Australia, stuff like that. A lot of dance hits here in the States also. So more with Ivan coming up. And we're going to play their second big hit in the States in 1987, 5 years after the Safety Dance. This is the Decades Artist Spotlight. Right here, it's Decades on Total Reach Radio, 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM and around the world at 105theriver.net and Decades with JoeEKramer.com. More with Ivan Doroschuk from Men Without Hats right here on Decades.
This is the Decades Artist Spotlight.
Northeast PA's 105 The River.
Johnny played guitar, Jenny played bass. The name of the band
This week's Decades Artist Spotlight continues. Now, here's Joe E. Kramer with this week's artist.
We are on a Decades Artist Spotlight. Ivan Doroshuk from Men Without Hats is with us. So let's get back to it with part 2 of our interview. Ivan Doroshuk from Men Without Hats. What you were able to put in folk of the 80s, you had to go back and then, like you said, return 2 or 3 years later and finish an album.
Yeah, that's it. So that's and these were songs that we had started before we had before the whole thing had blown up, and it was just we were young. It was record companies. It was just a whole thing. This is it's something. It's unfortunately something that's it's kind of a dying art now, and what I'm noticing now is a lot of bands aren't going to get that chance that we had. And that's one of the things that I think is kind of sad that all those studios are closing and all those bands now make records on laptops in somebody's living room, and they don't know that they think it's the same thing. They think everything's happening. They don't understand that I made records. I made records in the same room that David Bowie and John Lennon made records, and with some of the same guys that were behind the board, who told me stories about about working with them and the tricks that they had and the way they just all these stories are lost now. It's all about some guy's laptop in his room,
But any kid, you get the right software, and you can make some beats up, and you could have your own little, you could record a song. It's not that difficult.
Well, I think the mystery's kind of gone out of the whole thing now, and like everybody can, like before you had to earn your tattoos. Now you can just go buy them like ready-made at the store. So the little girl working at the Thrifty's food store is got full sleeve tattoos where In my days, it was the Yakuza, the Hells Angels, the sailors, and the prisoners that had tattoos, and everything's accessible to everybody now. You want to look like a rock star, you go online, you can find out where they got their boots, where they got their jacket, where they get their rings, where they get their tattoos, and everybody looks like a rock star. And that was one of the. That's one of the things that's dying too. Not only the studios are gone and all the people working and everything on and the big budgets and everything like that, but even the look of being a rock star is gone now because everybody's rocking this T-shirt, and everybody's walking around with lanyards like they're backstage, got some backstage pass to life or something, and and so that's it. So it's lost its cachet. And the crowd, the facts are there too. Like Bruce Springsteen, still the boomer crowd. Bruce Springsteen made I don't know how much, twice as much money as Justin Bieber doing half as many shows last year.
It's unreal.
And so once the boomer crowd is gone, that's it. There's not the arena rock type of trip is. It'll still be there, for the Ariana Grandes and the huge kind of Kate Perrys and stuff like that, but. The rest of the stuff, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to sustain itself. It's not. It doesn't have that. Like I say, it doesn't have that cachet anymore. It's not that organ of resistance that it used to be.
So in '87, Pop Goes the World comes out, which it's 5 years now since the Safety Dance, but it seems like did you take a little more time to do that record because Pop Goes the World was like a sequel to the Safety Dance, and everybody just ate it right up.
Yeah, no, well, we wanted to try something with Pop Goes the World. It was like an attempt to try and see how organic I could make an electronic band sound.
Right.
And so that's what I went. I went with the whole full symphonic route with the synthesizers, and I was relying on my past with having grown up as a child of the '70s. Growing up with concept albums with Pink Floyd and Genesis, and so that's what I tried there, and it was just another adventure. It was another sort of chapter in the.
And it was a good album too. Moonbeam was a song that I actually play in my show because I play the hits, but I love playing the tracks that didn't get a lot of play here in America, and. Yeah. Moonbeam was one of them that was, it was a dance song here in the States, but it wasn't really a radio song, but the album's full with tracks that could have probably been played on the radio.
Yeah, no, that's it. And so it was just another question of getting caught up in the whirlwind of the executive turntable, and it's those days were the I don't know. They were pretty exciting days, the '80s for music. But it was a big time in a big time because big changes were coming in the industry, and so this was kind of like it was just before the shit hit the fan type of thing, you know, and so things were pretty wild, and people were making their last big deals, and you know, just start doing everything before the ship went down, kind of thing, almost, you know, in the '80s. And you know, the '90s gave what they gave, you know, and that scene, and then it kind of all just sort of in the new millennium, it's just been a sort of a different world almost, you know.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the music of today, and I talk to my wife about it all the time. I'm like, you know, is it that I'm getting old, or is it that, you know, it just everything sounds the same to me? It doesn't have that substance that. And there's people who say '80s music, oh, that was just senseless, but those songs are remembered. I mean, you don't hear that about the '90s. You hear that about the '80s.
Because they're still songs, you know. They were still, even though, like, one of my theories is that the '80s are still around because it's a dance music,
right?
And this is one of the reasons that disco is kind of really big. You have '70s nights, you have '80s nights. I mean, you know, but you don't really have any '90s nights because it was kind of a downer.
Yeah,
you know?
just a little bit.
And so, like, the '80s, but the '80s also had songs. They had, you know, and we're on tour with Howard Jones, and every time he plays, I'm like, I'm amazed. Like, I'm saying, that's why this guy's still around. That's why the people are still coming, because his songs have got memorable songs, you know.
They all have a hook. Songs today do not have a hook.
I mean, tell me how many Kanye West songs you're going to be singing around the campfire in 20 years, you know?
I always say that. People say to me, so in like 15 years, are you going to be playing like Justin Bieber and Kanye West? I'm like, hopefully in 15 years. I won't be. I can't even imagine playing that stuff on my show.
You know, like, I mean, I can't even. You can't sing these songs. You can't hum them. They're all guys just talking about how cool they are and just, you know, bragging. And I just don't know why people haven't. You know, like we especially since we went through such a PC culture for the last.
Oh God, you can't say anything without being thrown under the bus.
But somehow these rap bands got away with it.
Yep.
You know. It's such a double standard, and and it's kind of like, you know, you look at America now, and you look at the youth culture in America, and it's still a pimp and hoe culture, and it's still a rape culture, and it's like, and I think it's largely due to the music, you know. That's largely due to the music culture that's going on there too, you know. Guys are trying to look like gangsters. Everybody's gangster this, gangster that, and it's, you know, the N-word this, N-word that. You know, it's like, I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, but, you know.
I have this fight all the time, so you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Believe me. Loving the Age of War. I mean, 2012, that was out. You talk about a synth album. I mean, if you're a hardcore Men Without Hats fan, this was the album right from Devil Come Round. I mean, synthesizers galore, and it sounded like classic Men Without Hats. It sounded like a follow-up to Rhythm of Youth. I mean, that's...
Yeah, well, that's I mean, I've said this before, you know, we went in there, Dave Rave and I went in there with the express purpose of making a record that sounded like it was recorded the week after Safety Dance,
right.
The week after Rhythm of Youth. We didn't want, and I think we have said this too. I think we made the record that our fans wanted us to make. We didn't make a dubstep record. We didn't make a rave, you know, record. We didn't like a hardcore techno record. We didn't try to keep up with the times. We went and did what we did best. We didn't try and reinvent the wheel. We just went back and got all the synths that we used to use and used the kind of technology that we used back then. And I still write the same kind of songs when I'm in the mood, you know. And it was a fun project. That's one of the main things. It was an exciting project. And that's one of the things Rhythm of Youth had too. It had an innocence, but it had an element of fun too. It was like I said, we were so excited about being in the studio. It was just like we couldn't believe it, you know, that somebody actually liked our music enough to give us money to record, you know, more songs. It was just like, wow, you know, how did we luck out this much, you know?
And in the age of you know, people releasing singles and not albums, do you see yourself, you know, not maybe next year, but eventually putting out another CD? Do you still enjoy making new music?
I don't. Well, I write. The way I write is I watershed. Like I wrote that whole album like all at once, like that last record. And it usually comes at times when there's some kind of major change happening in my life, and that was what was going on in there and around Love in the Age of War. Everything was kind of changing in my life. I was getting back on the road, getting back in the band. I had just gotten a divorce. I was everything was around me was changing, and it was really that was the catalyst for writing the album. And that seems to be, I haven't written that many albums, and I've only made like 5 or 6 records in my life, and it seems that that's how I operate. I sort of build up all this stuff inside me until there's a sort of a cataclysmic event that sort of just sets everything off, and I write songs. But my life has been going so good lately, I haven't really had anything to write about, It's like, that's my problem. I just, I can't sit around and write songs like I don't know, like Sting writing songs about his castle and that,
Probably because you don't have a castle.
Yeah, one of the reasons is I don't have a castle.
Right.
Yeah, but I just don't. I'm not there. I guess I write songs when I feel I need to write songs, and that's it.
And go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying I don't sit around every day, and there's different people work different ways. Some people just set aside a special amount of time every day, and they go and they work on their craft, which it is a craft, and I appreciate that, and I totally respect it. But different people work different ways, and I'm just not one of those guys who sits away and plugs away at songs all day and stuff like that. I write them when there's so many inside me that I just got to sit down and get them out of me and move on.
And you touched on it before, and before we wrap things up here, the Retro Futura Tour 2017. This is not just a weekend thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is a bona fide tour. Howard Jones, Katrina and the Waves, Modern English, Paul Young, The English Beat, Annabella Lewin from who's the voice of Bow Wow Wow, and that's the way you want to hear it. You're starting off July 2nd, and you're in your hometown of Montreal, and you're going right through the summer.
Yeah, we're doing 6 weeks. We're doing 2 weeks in Quebec and Ontario, and then 4 weeks with Howard and the crew in the States. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait.
I mean, nowadays you want to get a bang for your buck, and when you can go to see a concert that's going to bring back that many memories, with yourself and with Howard Jones and with Katrina and the Waves and think of all the hits that are just in the in that group.
Oh yeah, no, we've been doing these for a few years now, and the people love it. I mean, they're just getting better and better and better, and because people are having so much fun, and that's exactly the reason why. You just see so many songs, you hear so many hits in such a short period of time that you can't go wrong.
And it's great going back to Montreal, I guess, with a tour like this.
Yeah, we're going to be doing we're doing a big, huge Canada Day, July 1st Canada Day show in Montreal. It's going to be just massive. We're doing it with Carly Rae Jepsen. It's going to be fun.
We're on a Decades Artist Spotlight. Ivan Doroshuk, he is the frontman, the founder, the voice of Men Without Hats. Ivan, as always, I mean, we have to do this more often than every couple years. You're great to have on the show. We love Men Without Hats, and they're going to be coming to a town near you this summer. It's going to be a great summer.
It's going to be fun. We're going to have a blast. Hey, everybody, this is Ivan from Men Without Hats, and you're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
This week's Decades Artist Spotlight continues. Now, here's Joe E. Kramer with this week's artist.
We are on Decades Artist Spotlight. Ivan Doroshuk from Men Without Hassle with us tonight. Got to thank Ivan, of course, for joining us. As always, it is a pleasure. You can check out the interview online. I'll have it up there early this week. Just go to decadeswithjoeykramer.com, link it right from there onto Spreaker.com. Now, coming up in 2 weeks, man, we're already coming to the end of August. It is truly unbelievable how fast everything's going. But August 26th, we will have Robert Mason here from the band Warrant returning to the show. So Robert Mason in 2 weeks, and then we're going to do a couple in a row. Just to give you an idea, Jade Starling from Pretty Poison, Paul Young, who is also on that Retro Futura tour, Mike Peters from the band The Alarm, which I really love, Mike Score from A Flock of Seagulls will be with us, and Andy McCluskey, the frontman for Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, OMD, If You Leave, and more. All coming up on the Decades Artist Spotlight. We got more Decades coming up. Don't you go anywhere. This is Decades on Total Reach Radio, 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM, and around the world at 105theriver.net, Decades with JoeyKramer.com, and the Radio Bold app to your iPhone or Android device. More Decades coming up.
This is the sound of the 80s generation on WWRR Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Hey, this is Tom Kiefer from Cinderella.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Mark. Hey, this is Brian. And this is KT from Color Me Bad. Hey, everybody. This is Bill Leverty of Firehouse. Hey, this is Gunnar Nelson from Nelson.
You are rocking on Decades.
Decades. And you're listening to my friend Joey Kramer on Decades.
Decades with Joe E. Kramer. Only on 105 The River.
All right, here we go. Hour number 4 is ready. 5 full hours of retro radio. The only live show right here on a Saturday night. Human being in the seat, no computers necessary, right? We do it every Saturday night. Glad you could join us. Let's kick off the 10 o'clock hour top 10 for Robbie Neville. C'est la vie.
A job, that's okay, but they got me working night and day. Punching in, punching out. Is this really what life's all about? What you gonna do, what you gonna feel? I don't know. What you gonna feel, what you gonna do? Ooh, someone tell me. What you wanna say, what you wanna do? There's only one thing left. What you wanna say, what you wanna say? That's just the way it goes. Oh yeah. That's just the way
on air, online, and on your mobile device. Decades is everywhere. 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 Everywhere.
When I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall, and in the back of my mind, I hear my conscience call, telling me I need a girl who's as sweet as a dove. For the first time in my life, I see I need love. There I was, giggling about the games that I had played with many hearts, and I'm not saying no names. Then the thought occurred, teardrops made my eyes burn, cause I said to myself, look what you've done to her. I can feel it inside, I can't explain how it feels. All I know is that I'll never dish another raw deal, playing make-believe, pretending that I'm true, holding in my laugh as I say that I love you, saying I'm more, kissing you on the ear, whispering I love you and I'll always be here. Although I often reminisce, I can't believe that I found a desire for true love floating around inside my soul, because my soul is cold. One half of me deserves to be this way till I'm old, but the other half needs affection and joy, and the warmth that is created by a girl and a boy. I need love. Delight, how sweet. I gotta find me a girl to make my life complete. You can scratch my back, we'll get cozy and huddle. I'll lay down my jacket so you can walk over a puddle. I give you a rose, pull out your chair before we eat. Kiss you on the cheek and say, ooh girl, you're so sweet. It's deja vu whenever I'm with you. I could go on forever telling you what I do, but where you at, you're neither here nor there. I swear I can't find you anywhere. Damn sure ain't in my closet or under my rug. This love search is really making me bug. And if you know who you are, why don't you make yourself seen? Take a chance with my love and you'll find out what I mean. Fantasies can run, but they can't hide. And when I find you, I'ma pour all my love inside. I need love. Kiss you, hold you, never scold you, just love you, suck on your neck, caress you and rub you, grind, moan, and never be alone. If you're not standing next to me, you're on the phone. Can't you hear it in my voice? I need love bad. I got money, but love something I never had. I need your ruby red lips, sweet face and all. I love you more than a man who's 10 feet tall. I watch the sunrise in your eyes. We're so in love when we hug, we become paralyzed. Our bodies explode in ecstasy unreal. You're as soft as a pillow and I'm as hard as steel. It's like a dreamland, I can't lie, I've never been there. Maybe this is an experience that me and you can share. Clean and unsoiled, yet sweaty and wet. I swear to you, this is something I'll never forget. I need love. I'm no longer a playboy on the run. I need something that's stronger. Friendship, trust, honor, respect, admiration. This whole experience has been such a revelation. It's taught me love and how to be a real man. To always be considerate and do all I can. Protect you, you're my lady and you mean so much. My body tingles all over from the slightest touch of your hand. And understand, I'll be frozen in time till we meet face to face and you tell me you're mine. If I find you, girl, I swear I'll be a good man. I'm not gonna leave it in destiny's hands. I can't sit and wait for my princess to arrive. I gotta struggle and fight to keep my dream alive. I search the whole world for that special girl. When I finally find you, watch our love unfurl. I need love. Listen to me. When I be sitting in my room all alone, staring at the wall, fantasies, they go through my mind. And I've come to realize that I need true love. And if you want to give it to me, girl, make yourself seen. I'll be waiting.
Total Reach Radio. This is Decades 1986. Has started it all for LL Cool J. I Need Love on Decades.
This is Retro Radio.
Retro Radio.
Decades on 105, The River.
As we roll through 5 full hours of Retro Radio, Joe E. Kramer here. We're here every single Saturday night. It has been 10 years since the last KC and the Sunshine Band album, but there are rumors that Harry Wayne and the guys are going back into the studio and getting another album out in the next year or so. Who knows? He's a man of few words. That's all I can tell you about that. Last album was called Yummy in 2007. This was a solo hit in 83. KC, Give It Up, right here on Decades.
Decades with Joe E. Kramer. And another lost track from the 80s.
Hi, this is Andy McCluskey from the band OMD, and you are listening to Joe E. Kramer, Decades.
Teardrop
Total Reach Radio. This is Decades. That is OMG. Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark on Decades. Andy McCluskey, of course, he will be with us on the Decades Artist Spotlight coming up probably in September. We're going to get him on. He's out. They're touring nonstop, and they just get better and better. Their new album is actually going to be coming out. I believe it's on September 1st, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking it up right now. I believe it's on September 1st. My computer's moving very slow here. Let's look at it here. September 1st, The Punishment of Luxury. And when I have Andy on the show, I'll be playing some new tracks off The Punishment of Luxury. That is, I believe, their 15th studio album. We Love You, by the way. One of their best, The Pacific Age, back in 1986. All right, we got more Decades coming up. Don't you go anywhere. Great music on the way. Real Life in there, new edition. A great song from Bananarama from 1988. Wasn't a big hit here in the States, but hey, that's what Decades is all about. We play the ones that no other station will play. No other show will play. All straight ahead right here, Decades on Total Reach Radio 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM around the world at 105theriver.net, Decades with JoeyKramer.com, and the Radio Bolt app. Hang on.
The radio's all yours now.
Let's have some more music. Turn it up louder.
Now, here's a very popular number.
This is a guaranteed gold record.
Oh, Maestro, don't forget your cue now.
Now, back to the music. This is Decades with Joe E. Kramer.
Hi, this is David Stowe from Real Life, and you're listening to Decades with Joe E. Kramer.
Fences are down, I can't survive on my own.
It's Joe E. Kramer with Decades.
The biggest hits. 105 The River.
Always love the original of this song. And of course, I love the remake from Karate Kid Part 2, New Edition. Earth Angel. This is Decades on Total Reach Radio.
Earth Angel, Earth Angel, will you be mine? My darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool, a fool in love with you. Wow, Earth Angel, Earth Angel, the one I adore. Love you forever and evermore. I'm just a fool in love with you. I fell for you, and I knew the vision of your love, loveliness. Oh, and I pray that someday I'll be the vision of your happiness. Earth angel, please be mine. My darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you. I fell for you, and I knew the vision of your loveliness. I hope and pray that someday I'll be the vision of your happiness. Earth angel, please be mine. My darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you. Earth angel, Earth angel, will you be mine? Earth angel, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you. A fool in love with you. Earth angel.
Blasting out the hits. The Master Blaster. This is Decades with Joe E. Kramer.
She's a glamorous girl, and she came to rock my world. All the guys, they wanna get with her. Step back, cause you know you can't get her. First of all, you got to have money, just in order to be a honey. But hey, that's down my line, cause I like a girl that's fine. Give her everything that she wants. Golden money so she can flaunt and show that she got Gucci, Louis Vuitton. MCM styles of every kind. Mega design Alpinas. This girl, man, you gotta just see her. Sooner or later, she'll be my wife, and that's when she'll live the glamorous life. she got, they wanna get with it, but they're not doing nothing to get it. We're the talk of the town. Every time that we roll round, other girls, they just get jealous when they smell her Perry Ellis, or obsession, or her poison. You keep away from the boys, ain't cuz they might try to disrespect you, but don't let them upset you, cause yo, they're not that thorough to take away your girl. A girl that has no price when she's in the glamorous life.
Large. I had all the luxuries in life. When I was with that nut EST, he didn't give me nothing. It's like my mom used to say. They're gonna use what we got to get what we want. Use what we got to get what we want.
Yeah, girls like you, Michelle, it's hard to find. That's why I had to make you my wife, so you can live the glamorous life.
This is Decades. That is Cool C, Christopher Douglas Roney. I meant to play Glamorous Life by Sheila E. So I played Cool C, Glamorous Life. By the way, the guy's, I just realized, is in jail for life. He has the death penalty for a murder in a bank robbery, believe it or not. Cool C. In a Who's Cow. Anyway, my daughter, Sam, well, everybody knows, Singing with the Sam, Miss Sammy. She's on her way back from Maine. She's in her car right now with a whole group of people. And I promised I would say hi, of course. I don't know why she wanted me to say hi, but I promised her I would say hi and play her a song. Because she never gets to hear a song when she's actually here. She just gets to sing a song when she's here. So, how about Pac-Man Fever for Samantha? Here we go.
Quarters and I'm headed to the arcade. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm bringing everything I made. I got a callus on my finger and my shoulder's hurting too. I'm gonna eat them all up just to
'cause I got Pac-Man fever. It's driving me crazy. I got Pac-Man fever. I'm going out of my mind. I got Pac-Man fever. Driving me crazy. Pac-Man fever. I'm going out of my mind. Pac-Man fever. Driving me
Crack open a new Coke and slip on those leg warmers. This is Decades on Total Reach Radio.
Been working so hard, I'm punching my card. 8 hours for work. Oh, tell me what I got. I got this feeling that time's just holding me down. I'll hit the ceiling, or else I'll tear up this town. Now I gotta cut loose, put loose, kick off the Sunday shoes. Please, Louise, pull me up on my knees. Jack, get back, come on before we crack. Lose your news, everybody cut put loose. You're playing so cool. Obeying every rule. Dig away down in your heart. You're burning, yearning for somebody to tell you life ain't a passing you by. I'm trying to tell you, in a way you don't even try. You can fly if you don't cut loose, put loose. Kick off the Sunday shoes. Ooh-wee, Marie, shake, shake the Marie. Oh, my Lord, come on, let's go. Loose, you're loose. Everybody cut foot loose. Put your feet on the ground. Now take the hold of I'm telling you, loose. Kick off the Sunday shoes. Please, Louise, pull me up on my knees. Jack, get back. Come on before we crack. Lose your news. Everybody cut foot loose. Kick off the Sunday shoes. Please, Louise, pull me up on my knees. Jack, get back. Come on before we crack. Lose your news. Everybody cut, everybody cut. Everybody cut, everybody cut. Everybody cut, everybody cut. Everybody cut foot loose.
It's Joe E. Kramer with Decades.
Wanna find the river.
Last night I was dreaming, I was locked in a prison cell. When I woke up, I was screaming, come
course, Sarah, Karen, and Siobhan together, they made up Bananarama. Love in the First Degree from 1987 on Decades. They are actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the all-female group with the most chart entries in the entire world. 37 singles have reached the chart for Bananarama. 11 right here in the States, including 2 number ones. Love in the First Degree right here on Decades. Joey Kramer, don't forget, coming up in 2 weeks, we're going to be having... who are we going to have? Robert Mason of Warrant will be with us in a Decades Artist Spotlight. Robert Mason of Warrant coming up in 2 weeks. 2 hours of Hairspray at 8 next Saturday night. We got 1 hour left tonight, so don't go anywhere. More Decades coming up right here. Total Reach Radio, 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM, and around the world at 105theriver.net. Decades with JoeyKramer.com and the Radio Bold app. We are going to wrap the 1 hour up next. Got that? Say that real fast. We'll be right back. It's Decades on Total Reach Radio.
This is the sound of the 80s generation on WWRR Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Hi, this is Mike School from A Flock of Seagulls.
This is Steve Lynch from Autograph.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is your girl Cece Tennyson.
You're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
And you're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
You're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
Decades with Joey Kramer. Only on 105 The River.
As we roll 5 full hours of retro radio every single Saturday night. Hey, it's final hour. Good times go quick when you're having fun. Isn't that what they say? So every Saturday night we do it. Kick off the 11 o'clock hour, Tiffany.
Hey, this is Tiffany, and you're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
That's what they say when we're together. And watch how you play. They don't understand, and so we're running just as fast as we can. Holding on to one another's hand. Trying to get away into the night. And then you put your arms around me and we tumble to the ground. And then you say,
This next song is for couples only. This is Decades with Joe E. Kramer.
So long, I've been looking too hard, I've been waiting too long. Sometimes I don't know what I will find. I only know it's a matter of time. When you love someone, when you love someone, it feels so right, so warm and true. I need to know if you feel it too. Maybe I'm wrong. Won't you tell me if I'm coming on too strong? This heart of mine has been hurt before. This time I wanna be sure. I've been waiting for a girl like you to come into my life. I've been waiting for a girl like you, and a love that will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life. You're so good. When we make love, it's understood. It's more than a touch or a word we say. Only in dreams could it be this way. When you love someone, yeah, I really love someone. Now I know it's right from the moment I wake up till deep in the night. There's nowhere on earth that I'd rather be than holding you tenderly. I've been waiting for a girl like you to come into my life. I've been waiting for a girl like you, and a love that will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life. I've been waiting for you.
Total Reach Radio, this is Decades. That song spent 6 weeks at number 2 back in 1983. Or 1981, I'm sorry. A total of 15 weeks in the top 10. Foreigner, Waiting for a Girl Like You on Decades.
It's Joe E. Kramer with Decades.
Northeast PA's 105 The River.
If you missed it tonight, Ivan Doroshuk from Men Without Hats was with us at 9 o'clock. If you missed that, you can always tune into the podcast. Available all the time at decadeswithjoekramer.com. Just click on the link. It'll take you right to Spreaker, and all the shows are on there. I keep a whole year's worth. So from January 1st on, impression that I get, it's the Boss Tones.
Have you ever been close to tragedy or been close to folks you have? Have you ever felt the pain so powerful, so heavy you collapse? No. Well, I never die. You need a strength most don't possess. Or has it ever come down to do or die? You got to rise above the rest. Never been tested. I'd like to think that if I was, I would pass. Look at the tested and think there before the grace go on. Might be a coward, I'm afraid of what I might find out. Never had to knock on wood, but I know someone who has, which makes me wonder if I could. It makes me wonder if I never had to knock on wood, and I'm glad I haven't yet, because I'm sure it isn't good. That's the impression that I get. Sure it isn't good, and I'm glad I haven't yet. That's the impression that I get.
Pardon me while I stop the music. I need to play with my Rubik's Cube. This is Decades with Joe E. Kramer.
But get this through their time. Don't chest, I'll take this belt from around my waist, and don't you think that I won't ever sing out to me and take your time? What could be the offer? Cry me good to it so young in age. If I'm the only witness to your madness, offer me some words to balance out what I see and what I hear. Oh, these cold and rolling things that you do, I suppose you do because it belongs to you. And instead of loving the feel of warmth, you've given him these cuts and sores that don't heal with time or with age. And I want to say what's the matter here? But I don't dare say what's the matter here? But I don't dare say.
Total Reach Radio, this is Decade. The one and only Natalie Merchant and her band, of course, the 10,000 Maniacs, here on Decades. And she hasn't been with the band for, God, it's been 24 years. Their new lead singer is Mary Ramsey, who has been with the band on and off. And, of course, since Natalie Merchant departed back in 93. 10,000 Maniacs, just 37 years together. Dennis Drew, Steve Gustafson, Jerry Augustiniak. I can't pronounce these names. Mary Ramsey, lead vocalist, and Jeff Erickson. Meanwhile, Natalie Merchant continues to perform her solo. She left in 93, said she was going solo, and she did indeed go solo and never looked back. 10,000 Maniacs, what's the matter here on Decades? We got more Decades coming up. We're going to wrap things up for another Saturday night. Don't you go anywhere. This is Decades exclusively on Total Reach Radio. Hang on.
Well, let's do this, puppy.
Commercials off.
Oh, great.
Well, I sure like the way you broke your ass to let me know about it.
Retro Radio on.
That concludes our sideshow.
Back to Decades with Joe E. Kramer on 105 The River.
There ain't never a catch on, you gotta do is smash it down cold.
This is the sound of the 80s generation. Decades with Joe E. Kramer.
Hey, this is Michael Sweet from Stryper, and you are listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
Tunnel Reach Radio. This is Decades. Not a nicer guy out there, Michael Sweet and Stryper, who are working on a new album that'll be out later this year, probably early in 2018. Stryper, right here on Decades. It's Joey Kramer. Well, Prince has been gone for over a year. A lot of music locked up, including an album called Deliverance, which was supposed to be released back in April and then was pulled back. Now one song's available and there's no date on when the rest of the album will come out, so who knows. We always got the old ones though. You got the look. Prince, Sheena Easton. This is Decades, Total Reach Radio.
You walked in, I woke up. I've never seen a pretty girl look so tough, baby. You got that look. I color you peach and black, color me taking her back. Crucial, I think I want you. You got the look.
versus girl in the World Series of Love. Love it! You walked in, I woke up, I never seen such a pretty girl look so tough, baby. You got that look, that you do. Color you peach and black, color me taking them back, baby. Crucial, think I want you. You got the look, you got the look. You sure enough to be cooking in my book. Your face is jamming, body's heavy slamming. If your love is good, let's get to ramming now. You got the look. Here we are, folks. The dream we all dream of. You got the look.
It's Joe E. Kramer with Decades.
TikTok, you don't stop, stop to the hard. TikTok, you don't stop, stop to the hard. TikTok, you don't stop, stop to the hard. TikTok, you don't stop, stop to the
Come inside, take off your coat, I'll make you feel at home. Now let's pour a glass of wine, 'cause now we're all alone. I've been waiting all night, so just let me hold you close to me. 'Cause I've been dying for you, girl, to make love to me. Girl, you make me feel real good. We can do it till we both wake up. Girl, you know I'm hooked on you. And this is what I'll do. I wanna sex you up all night. I want to. I wanna sex you up. Let me take off all your clothes. Disconnect the phone so nobody knows. Yeah. Let me light a candle so we can make it better. Making love until we drown. Dig. Girl, you know it feels real good. We can do it till we both wake up. Girl, you know I'm hooked on you. And this is what I'll do. Yeah. I wanna sex you up. Make it love until we drown. I wanna sex you up.
Decades with Joe E. Kramer. And another lost track from the 80s.
We go way back to 1981 with this. The movie was Grease 2. It gave you Cool Rider, and it gave you a great song by the Four Tops, Back to School Again. You can see them all dancing outside. Pretty cool. This is Decades. Total Reach Radio.
Spending my vacation in the summer sun. Getting lots of action, having lots of fun. Scoring like a bandit till the bubble burst. Suddenly it got to be September 1st. Whoa, it's me. All summer long I was happy and free. Saved my soul. The Board of Education took away my parole. I gotta go back to school again. You won't find me till the clock strikes 3. I'm gonna be there till then. I gotta go back to school again. Whoa, I gotta go back to school again. Geometry and history is just a pain. Biology and chemistry destroys my brain. Well, don't they know that I deserve a better fate? I'm really much too young to matriculate. Well, mama, please, your child's come down with a fatal disease. Mama said, come on, you lazy bum, and get your butt out of bed. You gotta go back to school again. It's 5 o'clock, get your homework done, and better be in by 10. I gotta go back to school again. Whoa, I gotta go back to school again. I got my books together and I dragged my feet. And then I saw this angel walking down the street. I said, hey, pretty baby, how's about a date? She said, I'm going to school and I can't be late. Well, I could see the look in her eyes was saying, follow me. And I was caught. I thought of praying, hook you on a second thought. I gotta go back to school again. You won't find me till the clock strikes 3. I'm gonna be there till then. I gotta go back to school again. Whoa, I gotta go back to school.
Can't help but singing along, right? The Four Tops from Grease 2. There you go, Grease 2 with Michelle Pfeiffer back in 1982. The sequel to the original Grease. A lot of people didn't like it. It didn't make a lot of money, but it became a cult classic, and I love the music. I think I like some of the music in that one better than the first one. That's the Four Tops, Back to School Again. Right here on Decades, which will wrap up another edition of Decades for a Saturday night. Got to thank Ivan Doroshuk from Men Without Hats for talking to us tonight during the Decades Artist Spotlight. We'll have another one coming up in 2 weeks, August 26th. Robert Mason from the band Warrant, the frontman of the band Warrant, will be here in the Decades Artist Spotlight. Next Saturday night, 2 hours of Hairspray at 8. Mr. Rex Havoc will be joining us, and you know that's always fun. So he'll be here next Saturday night with me. Labor Day Shadow Steel will be coming up. And a lot of good stuff coming here in Decades as we wrap up the summer. Have yourself a great week. I will talk to you next Saturday night. Check out the podcast at decadeswithjoeekramer.com and Spreaker.com. And I think that's about it. Like us on Facebook, too. This is Decades. On Total Reach Radio, 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM around the world at 105theriver.net, decades with JoeECramer.com, and the Radio Bold app. Have a great week.